And there's a lot of silver linings all over my body right now. So I just
That's why you wear the hats?
Yeah. Yeah, it's that, but it's like, what do? Do I dye my hair and like be fake it? No, I can't. I just, I got to present what I got. That's just my mentality. So yeah.
I love it. You're embracing it. It's good. Same with Adam shaving the head. You got to do what you got to do, right? Oh, you still got hair. There we go. I love it.
Right?
Oh,
it's all there, man.
It's just a little salt and pepper.
Yeah, all my friends are bald, so I mean, they really can't say much to me. So,
and it's funny because you're kind of the favorite as far as the women seem to like you the most on MindPump. As far as so is that because you have more hair, or what's with that?
No, I think it's just because I don't talk myself up as much. Yeah, I think that actually backfires for them. No, I don't think that's true. Even I think they just say that all the time, and it's just like when you say things enough, people just start to believe it. So I'm like, hey, yeah, sure. Like if that's the case, I'm all for it.
Yeah, you're not going to complain, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Well, man, like I said earlier, I really appreciate you coming on the Athletes Podcast. If you're not familiar with what we do, we try and share pro athlete stories and kind of Joe Rogan style. I know you're a fan of the JRE show.
Love it.
We're just having casual conversations here, but I'm super pumped to have you on because you were an athlete, college athlete yourself. And, I like being able to share your guys' point of view as far as, you're trying to break the health and fitness industry and showcase what people should really be doing instead of what the industry markets towards as far as athletes being, you should be training like, whoever, Antonio Brown, you should be training like Connor McDavid, right, whatever, XYZ. So I'm thrilled to be able to have you guys on to showcase what the knowledge that you have and, break it down as to what the average person should be doing as far as training. So, and you're the perfect person to talk to this. And so how do you suggest that the average person should train? I'm going through MAPS Anabolic right now and nice. I'm loving the process, dude. It's crazy. Full body workouts are awesome.
Yeah, that was a big transition for me to go from split. And I mean, back in the day, even all the strength coaches were doing split programs with athletes as well. And it was just like, I think it was just limited knowledge out there as to what was effective and what wasn't. And, that transition into full body workouts was a big one because before that, it's like leg day. Everybody dreaded leg day coming up and you just knew you were going to pay for it the next few days, limping around and barely even being able to kind of sit down and squat and take a shit. So, it was like a punishing type of mentality where when you get into full body workouts, you realize right away that you're sort of dispersing that load throughout your body and you're able to kind of bounce back and have more effective workouts. So say you're doing your squats, but you're not going with like an all out assault. Each rep is going to be much more quality in that rep. And so that's another thing that I kind of took away from it is just the recovery was way better, but also the actual exercises were performed way better. The mechanics were better. And just the results kind of spoke for themselves after a while. And you end up getting a lot of that volume, sometimes more volume, doing these full body workouts than you did doing the splits.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's one of the things you guys bring up all the time is, guys will rip arm or leg day, for instance, once or twice a week, but you can't walk for the next 3 or 4 days, which hinders your recovery, which hinders your performance. The list goes on. But now, I'm going 3 days a week and I'm doing what for instance, I was doing 15, 20 squats, 20 reps of squats 3 days a week, which overall the volume that you're able to put together is a heck of a lot more. So I'm loving it I'm buzzing off of it right now. I've still got energy. I'm flying. What's been the biggest, because Adam talked about on the previous episode, he talked about how the biggest moment for him was the fact that he was able to notice that when people train, they don't necessarily know what they're doing all the time. They're just going through the motions. They go see what's on Instagram. People are showcasing, this is what you should do to build your body, whatever. What's been that paradigm shifting moment for you through MindPump over the past 6 years that you've really found is the best for performance and for athletes in general?
I think, I mean, it's related to intensity, only because of the mindset that every coach growing up tried to implement in their athletes. And they were really like emphasizing to be resilient and to be able to basically overcome all these variables that are going to be thrown your way, which there's a lot of value in that, especially when you're performing and you're in game mode. But the training aspect, I always like to, the biggest differentiator for me was seeing the difference between the over application of intensity versus, bringing that down and being more consistent and frequent with workouts. And that was, and I had such an amazing response with athletes and myself personally when I took down the amount of times where we went with max effort and we tested out. And I definitely over applied that when I was a young trainer with my clients, and to a fault, to where, it just you gotta start accounting for all the different stresses your body goes throughout the day, and spending a lot of time with like really world-renowned strength coaches, like your Max Schmarzos, your Corey Schlesingers, like they're leading that sports training side of the industry, because they're really applying the proper dose of stress with all their athletes, and they're now being able to track that too with HRV and all these other different applications to gather this data and these metrics. But all that stuff plays a factor, and when your athlete is overwhelmed with stress, and their body is fighting internally, you're not going to be able to exude the type of output that you would when you're fresh and when you're recovered, and also the longevity of the athlete diminishes too when you throttle down so hard. So I mean, that was one aspect. The other was really just mobility training and movement prep and all those prerequisites. Instead of going through, like when I first started learning about personal training and how to properly put together a program and all the science behind it. Excuse me. When I was first learning all that stuff, I just totally forgot what I was talking about. What was I talking about?
No, you're talking about the training as far as your, first off, you mentioned the intensity, but then you went on to say mobility. All right.
So when I first was going through like the certification process, they put a heavy emphasis on stability and, joint stability. And that's something that a lot of trainers just kind of breeze over with our clients initially, because it's boring, it's tedious, it's stuff that, the athlete themselves want to kind of get into the workout and start applying intensity and let's get after it. And I had to learn later on how to really harness the athletes and my clients in to have them understand this is the foundation that we're building to then perform at an even higher peak capacity. So not only is it something that's good for rehab and for addressing issues that come up, because you're going to go through a lot of challenging types of stress to the body just from your sports or lifting, but also this is a performance enhancement. And so when I started to kind of reframe that as mobility is more of a performance enhancement, I can throw a ball harder because now my body feels, my shoulder joint feels more stable. It allows me to apply more force where I need it. Also, I'm nice and loose. I got more range of motion. And the overall quality of all the movement increases substantially. So I think that was probably the other major epiphany I had as I've gone through my whole training career.
Yeah, you're known as the functional guy on the podcast. You chime in whenever there's a requirement for a specific athlete or athletic movement. You're the one that always makes sure to get that in there. You're swinging around the 50-pound baseball bat. How did that feel when your cartilage was cracking?
Yeah, I mean, it was, you feel it. Thankfully, that wasn't the first time that I've tried to do something crazy like that with weight swinging over my head. So I did have a little bit of a base, but yeah, I like to challenge it every now and then, see what I'm capable of. I mean, I still have that typical athlete kind of mentality still buried in there. And I want to test myself and see what my body's capable of. But that's an area where I like to focus a lot of my attention because my shoulders were so limited for so long. And whenever I would bench was my thing. I took a lot of pride in it, and I got to a point where I just had this sticking point. I couldn't get past it, and then I would either my shoulder would get injured, or I just couldn't break through. And it really wasn't until I started focusing on rotational movements and lots of mobility training that really unlocked even more potential for me to then get stronger and be able to output more to put up more weight. And so it was sort of mind blowing for me that, these types of stretches or, sort of yoga-y type movements, had that kind of an impact on just strength gains.
Right. Yeah. It's, and I'm terrible for neglecting it. And I, over the past 6 months of listening to you guys, I've started to implement it. I'm not great. I'll be honest here, but I'm working on it. Right. So for instance, if you were to be giving me advice, what would be the top 3 or 5 movements, exercises, mobility work that you would give and say every athlete should be doing outside of your MAPS performance, the one that you have on YouTube that you suggest to everyone?
Right. I actually did I don't know if you checked out my webinar that we did for our Prime program.
Yeah.
But there are literally 3 movements that are we use as tests. One of them is a wall press, one of them is a windmill, one of them is a squat test. They're very revealing in terms of how your joints are functioning and how everything is working properly. And so I highly suggest people check that out. But I break down basically the points of contact where if you can't retract your shoulders properly and you can't externally rotate to the abilities that you need to, like, that's a problem. That's something that you're going to notice in your performance, especially throwing anything or pressing anything or pushing anything. So that's definitely something that's a very common one too, because our daily lives they promote that sort of shrimp posture where everything kind of collapses forward, right? You get that forward neck, retracted shoulders, and then your body compensates in various ways, where we get this rib flare when we're trying to get our shoulders back. And just to be able to get your body and posture in good alignment is everything for you to then be able to perform and for your joints to do what they're supposed to without the potential for injury or sort of a leak in performance. So I highly suggest that. And then the squat test is, it's something that just we do. It's a common function that we need for everyday life, also athletics. But it tells me a lot about the hips, tells me a lot about the knees, the ankles. And a lot of people actually commonly have pretty poor ankle mobility. And this could be from their shoes, or this could just be from their daily activities that are promoting bad issues, and that's something that needs to be addressed. So if I'm gonna narrow it down to 3 common things, I would probably add 5. One of them would be, so I would do our wall test. I would definitely do a windmill. The windmill is going to add that transverse, that rotational element to the spine that you need that to stabilize yourself properly. And there's so much rotation involved with athletics. So that's something that you need to be able to have that ability. You need that thoracic rotation in your upper back. And that's something that can identify issues with that. And working on that really opens that up. And then, if I work my way lower to the hips, I'm doing 90-90s. So I get internal, external rotation with that. It's a very tough, challenging position especially for a lot of dudes.
Yeah, you're not used to being down on that low to the floor.
No, and just getting your hips to be mobile and open and loose just allows, so much more potential for the lower extremities, and actually is very protective over the knees, because the knees are pretty much going to be affected based off of the travel in the hips or the abilities that the ankles are providing. So it's either your ankles or your hips that tend to be the ones to address when there's a knee issue involved. So I would say 90-90 for the hips, and then for the ankles, our combat stretch.
Right.
And so that would be some good mobility exercises really focus on, and you kind of cover the bases that way.
Yeah, definitely. It's well, I know what I'm going to be doing after this now. So you brought up the fact that you guys are still competitive. MindPump, you guys are always trying to do things to, stay on top of your game, whatever it is, whether it's swinging that kettlebell, etc. One of the things that it was funny, Jordan brought it up right before you came on, was your guys' social media following. Adam mentioned in our last episode 57 of the AP, he said, make sure you send me all the links to this show. I want to make sure that mine gets the most views out of all three. And I'm like, damn right. I'm like, I'm not going to say no, but that was one of I was always curious, is like, so you've got a following that's about 45,000 there. Sal and Adam are up at 68,000. What's the discrepancy here? Why are you put
me on blast here, dude? Yeah.
Man, I'm curious. Like, if you're the good looking one, why are you lower? I don't get it. It doesn't add up.
Quality. Yeah, that's my argument. No, I look at it like running for prom versus being the best athlete at your school. Like, which one would you want to be? You can be prom king. I'll give you a sash. Just to announce that you get the popular vote.
Yeah.
We joke about all that stuff all the time and are competitive somewhat, just to kind of try and it's more of a challenge of like, oh man, yeah, maybe I should kind of like turn it up a little bit, my attention in terms of how much work I'm putting into that. Right. I think we all just really want to grow. Look, here's that asshole right there.
This is the best.
You just called me out on having the lowest following on Instagram.
Yeah, so, Adam.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So I love it. I love a competitive environment. I think it's healthy. I think and that's why we jab at each other all the time. It's really out of love. Like, if I actually want them to point out if I'm looking a bit fat. Some days, just pinch me, grab me. Like, I don't know. There's all this like softness now. Like, people get really sensitive about those things. I'm from the old school, man. A group of my friends, we always used to tease each other all the time. And it wasn't anything that we all went home and cried about. We just, we looked at it as just kind of a funny thing that we were just checking each other on it. And that way it keeps it honest too. I feel like you can be honest in that environment instead of trying to, step on eggshells with your coworkers. I feel like that environment sucks. So we're definitely not like that. We pretty much roast each other every day on the show. And I think it just makes us better. It sharpens us. I want to be critical. I'm very self-critical of what my efforts are and what I'm trying to do to help everybody else out from my end. I know, I'm critical of them too. And I watch what a stellar job they do on something. I want to do something stellar over here, and it's more of, we all want to be the best, and we want to combine our efforts so that way it all kind of moves forward.
Yeah, it's awesome. I just so thoroughly enjoy listening to those episodes and you guys jabbing back and forth, because I can just imagine how Adam will give you a little poke and you just embrace it. That's the way it should be, man. Society, like you said, it's everything's a little softer right now. You can't necessarily say too many things, but when you're with your boys, you can tell them what it's really like, and hopefully they listen, because ultimately that's how you're not going to know if you're out of shape. If you just look and say, oh, I look great every single day, and have everyone telling you I look amazing. Oh, that's incredible. Right? Like, man, it's not a good way to be.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously I'm sensitive to like who I'm talking to and what environment I'm in, and all those types of things, because not everybody can take that kind of heat coming their way. So very much filtered otherwise, but with these guys I don't have to be, and it's actually nice, and it sounds crazy, but it's definitely the case. Like, we all really enjoy it that way.
You talk about accountability. Do you follow a guy like David Goggins, who's out there all the time just yelling at you and telling you go, go, go? I mean, it kind of touches on that no pain, no gain that we were talking about earlier about, that's the way the industry tends to market sometimes to athletes, is go, go, push through the hurt, push through the pain. How do you make sure that you're balancing that recovery and that balance between pushing and going to your limits, but also making sure that you're recovering and staying in decent health and wellness?
Yeah, I think I'm more guilty of that. That would have been a message and a voice I would have listened to more when I was younger. That would have really resonated, because I was definitely full of more piss and vinegar, and I felt like I wanted to tackle every hard thing the earth had to offer. And I love that. I love that raw, like motivational energy. And I think it works for some people initially. And I understand people get a lot of value out of that. As I've matured and gotten older, and now have been in the industry, in the fitness industry, for as long as I have, I see what works and what's sustainable and what is a long-lasting approach versus what I have seen in the past and what I've been guilty of coaching early in my career. So I'm very conscious of that, that motivational energy, and that trying to really feed off that, because it's fleeting. Mm-hmm. It's a great feeling. It's something that you see a video and that promotes maybe some energy going into your workout that you can use, and you feel like I got a great workout because I just kicked my ass, and everything's great. But that's just something that there's a sort of a distinctive difference between being very analytical and being regimented about your approach and scientific based versus looking at it as something that I guess it's more sort of an emotional way to tackle it, where I'm really, if I'm not feeling it that day, like, what's going to motivate me to get in the gym and really do it? It's a harder conversation internally to really summon that, if that's your only way that you're getting the motivation to be there. So I think it needs to be more than that. I think that's something that is fun. It's right. It's like doing like a novel workout. It's like doing some crazy technique or swinging a 55-pound club around your head. It's cool, but that's just not what I do on a daily basis, and that's mm-hmm. not part of my lifestyle. And so there's a massive disconnect there. We're trying to preach to, and I'm glad you brought up in the beginning of all this, that we're really trying to tackle the average person, because I try to speak to athletes, but I'm also trying to harness athletes to think differently, because even that mentality doesn't work for very long. It feels like it does, but it's just something that there's burnout, and there's just ways where just psychologically and mentally, like, if you don't have it, you're going to have a terrible game, and you got to figure out another method to motivate you, or to get you just to be there and to perform on command. And so there's just a lot more options that I tend to gravitate towards these days. And really, it's just consistency and frequency. There's really nothing that trumps that. That is the most powerful approach out of any of the other ones. And it's just something that's way more sustainable, and that doesn't require as much intensity. It doesn't require as much volume. And it's something that it's because it's something you're constantly doing and not just punishing yourself over. it just lasts longer. It's just something that's just part of you now. So it's behavior. So,
yeah.
Regular people need to understand we need to create better behaviors, even if it's towards performance. You got to create better behaviors that you can take with you from here on out, not just right now to get me to this point A to point B. Because what happens when you get to point B and then you're done? It's pretty depressing. Where do you go from there? You got to think longer term than that. So that's kind of where I'm at these days.
It's interesting you bring up the sustainability aspect, because so to give you a little background, in January I was sitting at about 210, 212, overweight. I was a little chunky monkey, a little Michelin man action. And so I knew, I was like, I got to cut down. If I'm going to host an athlete's podcast, I got to be in decent shape, right? I can't be ripping the full on dad bod, like the 20% plus body fat. So trim down. And then, I started listening to you guys more consistently and recognize the fact that I can create a body that is sustainable for the next 30, 40, 50 years, not just trim down, yo-yo diet, back and forth, like bulk cut, like it's ridiculous, right? And it's hard on your body. It's definitely not good for your body. But that's one of the things that it's crazy to me, because now I'm 23. I act like I know what I'm doing, but I really have no idea. I'm just learning vicariously through you guys. And
hey, you know more than me at that age, so it's all good.
That's what I'm, this is the benefit of talking with guys like you, is I'm learning from what you guys have experienced, right? And ultimately now it's trying to create something that's good habits long-term for the future Dave, right? And not just present Dave. So yeah, I got to say thank you to you guys for sharing your insights. And that's why I'm thrilled to be able to have you guys on. And I hope more people end up listening to you guys because of these episodes. But one of the things we do, similar to the way you guys do your QA, is I ask some people, some questions that they want answered from my network. So one of the individual who actually turned me on to you guys, Maddie Henderson at Mad Shen, she's got a couple questions that relate specifically to you. She was thrilled that they were going to get asked on this episode. She's a big fan.
All right.
So what are your thoughts on having to wear masks while working out? Obviously, this is a thing with COVID, and how does this impact your performance and training outcomes? Obviously this is something that people are having to do. It sucks. What are your thoughts?
Oh boy. It's so unfortunate. It is a reality. It's especially to be in the gym setting, it's mandatory. And so, and to even keep their doors and their lights open, we all have to realize that this is a reality. And I'm definitely not a fan of cardiovascular training with a mask on it. I just find that just to be such a tough place to be. Like, it's just not, I don't see a lot of good
not ideal
from that. Not ideal, not a lot of good outcomes from that. To place myself in that situation, I think that, to be able, if the gym environment is something you need and you really have to, keep that, and you can't have any options at your house, I would just pretty much stick with all of my anaerobic training in the gym with the mask, just to be on the safe side. Sorry, I just got down to 20%. Am I still there? Okay. Basically try all the cardiovascular work, whether you're doing sprints or any other kinds of HIIT training. I would probably do outside or somewhere where you can breathe properly, and really build up that aerobic capacity. So I just, it's hard to comment on that because it's so not ideal. And it's just something we all just kind of have to listen to our bodies and see if you're getting lightheaded, if you're getting, you're not really getting the amount of oxygen you need for those movements. I would really pace yourself and maybe apply more rest periods, but be smart with it. Yeah. Don't overexude with the mask on, but also maybe take it off, get a couple breaths. Go back on, know he's looking.
You gotta do what you gotta do, right?
Yeah, I'm not doing it. So I feel for everybody that's in that environment. I tend to do a lot more home training because of that. But I miss the gym environment tremendously. I do. I fed off that energy. And I know a lot of people have the ability to have access to weights and things at their house. So you just kind of got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, it sucks, but you know what? We got to battle through it. We'll get over it at some point. Who knows? This vaccine is supposed to be 90% effective. Who knows? We'll find out. Convenient, as you guys say. Hey.
Hey, yeah, right. Yeah, I'm crossing fingers. You know, that's as much as I got for that.
What's it like down there after your results? We're in Canada, so we have the pleasure of not dealing with an election and all those fun events. How's the past week?
You're up in Canada, eh? Yeah, it's
in my igloo, riding my moose to work. We're good.
Drinking your maple syrup. Yeah, we're going through it, man. I mean, I've never seen anything like this. So I mean, of course nobody else has either. And it's just like, who do you trust? There's so much misinformation out there. This is something that's so divisive, like even amongst my own family. And I brought this up on the show. It's just, you know, like each person has a completely different perspective. And I think people just lose sight of that. And they don't have empathy in terms of placing themselves in somebody else's position and starting point and how they think and why they came to those conclusions. And so, I mean, I definitely have my own bias, and I have, you know, like what outcome I want to see. And, but it's just, to me, I was hammering, unification and bringing people together and peace, love, and unity. Like, and then people were shitting on that. And so I'm like, I don't know where to go from there. Like,
man, I'm sitting in the middle and I don't know.
That doesn't resonate with you. Like, who's going to listen to me anyways? You know? And so, it's dicey out there. It's dicey out there. And I know Sal loves the politics and he's kind of pulled us in. And it's all been forced on us. Like, I've hated politics ever since, you know, I remember, and avoided it just because. So when I was a bartender, you know, there's a few rules, like you can't bring up religion, can't bring up death, and you can't bring up politics. You know, those are like the big no-nos, because then you're going to get just animosity amongst everybody. And it just seems like we've been throttling down on all those things. I just can't stand it. So I like to stay positive, have fun, and, you know, be a little silly. If you don't like my ideas, then just kick rocks. I don't know what to tell you.
Dude, I didn't know you were a bartender. How much fun did you have bartending?
Oh, it was great. I did.
Best,
honestly, that helped me get outside my shell a little bit. You know, on the show, it took me a while to kind of, you know, come out with, I actually have ideas too, and opinions. But that took me a while with the small talk. I've always had a hard time with small talk. Like, it's just like, okay, what are we doing here? We're just burning time. Like, you're not even my friend. So I usually would just avoid people that, you know, are wasting my time. I don't know. Like, that's just how I've always been. And amongst like my circle of friends, it was very animated, was very outspoken, and we had a good time. But my parents' friends still to this day are so confused with what I do for a living. They're like, I've never even heard him talk. You know, I was very much reserved for the majority of people. And then only certain people would see sort of that other side of me that was very sort of boisterous and out there and wacky and crazy. But I'm trying to bring more of that into the show as much as possible, just to kind of, you know, put it out there and just, you know, just
you guys have
myself.
Yeah, you guys have a cool dynamic, but Sal kind of dominates the conversation for the majority of the time. Is that something that, because he's just that type A personality? I mean, you guys all are in some degree. What's the strategy behind that?
You know, we just kind of fell into certain roles as the show's progressed. We just noticed who's better at doing what.
Okay.
And he's like our pitch guy, you know, he just
salesman.
loves to talk. So yeah, you can't, like, he's just got a mouthpiece on him, and it's a beautiful thing. Like, he can talk, like, and he's good at talking, you know, like I'm still working on it. So I'm like, you know, I can throw in some blurbs, and then if I got something that piques my interest, you know, I'm going to kind of push my way in and, you know, try and inject what I can. But honestly, it's the perfect mesh. So Sal does do a lot of the legwork in terms of opening the show, pitching all of our products, bringing up, like, sort of starting off the conversation. So he's like our anchor man, you know. And then you know, in Adam's, like, very colorful, like, very much, you know, lets it out there, like, what he's thinking with no reserve. And he, you know, tells great stories. And he's just very, like, he can be polarizing, and that's great, because you know, you can just tell he just lets it go. And you know, I started out a bit more reserved and wanted to really be critical about what was coming out. So, like, you know, it had like a lot of impact in a short amount of words. And so that was sort of just what's always come naturally to me. I want to just sort of leave with something punctual, so people kind of lean into it. And then I'm like, I'm good. I'm done talking.
It goes back to your quality versus quantity comment, you know?
Exactly.
There you go. It's all part of your strategy. I love it.
Yeah. I don't like listening to myself talk. It's like nails on a chalkboard. So, you know.
Do you ever go back and listen? Do you ever go back and listen to your episodes?
Not old ones. That's for sure. But yeah, you know what? Me and Sal, I think we've back and forth, like, he'll bring up one that was like, oh my God, this intro was hilarious. Or I'll usually listen to the ones where I feel like it was super silly and ridiculous. Those are my favorite, just because that's where I'm drawn. It's not for everybody. You know, we've had the super science nerds that get, you know, angry that, you know, I'll bring up something totally left field or some conspiracy thing, and it's just like, like, I think those are the people that like me the least. But everybody else, you know, it's like, I'm just trying to have a good time. So those are the ones I'm drawn to. But yeah, I'll listen. You know, what's funny is we're totally those guys that if we're driving up together to stay, you know, up in Truckee or like somewhere else where we're staying at our, you know, Airbnb or something together, and we're doing work, we'll listen to ourselves. And we like are, you know, we're like laughing at our own jokes, and, you know, like, are like, ooh, that was really good what you said right there. And
just the typical
yeah, we're totally guilty of that. Yeah, we totally Kanye it a little bit.
I was dying at that one episode. I can't remember what number it was, but, you know, Adam brought up how he was bringing the bong out because the wife and kid were gone, and and then you referenced how you dropped an edible. Like, it was like, holy shit, everything's happening at once. Jesus, Sal's over there. He's like, man,
chaos.
Yeah, Sal's just the good little guy that's drinking his water and, you know, taking his vitamins.
Right. Yeah, we get a little wild sometimes, but, you know, it's the progression of the show has been like, okay, like, more honesty, better feedback. And it's like, now it's at a point where I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe, like, I told the world about that stuff.
It's all about balance, man. That's what it's all about, like you guys say. Her next question has to do with how does alcohol inhibit strength gain? And I thought this is kind of an interesting one because, you know, athletes, they love to party. They love to, you know, enjoy themselves after a big win or after, you know, celebrating you win the Stanley Cup. You got to drink some booze out of that. Like, how do you suggest that athletes go about maybe their social life afterwards? Should they be limiting their Bud Lattes to 4 instead of 12, or what's the deal?
Yeah, I mean, you just got to look at it as, is it really a performance enhancement? No. You know, could it potentially be, you know, something that's going to dehydrate you, or it's going to limit performance the next day if you got like a competition or a workout? It's not ideal. So it's like you hear all these arguments about how to you sort of weave around that and still have fun, and like you're compromising. So it's like, if you just look at it as something where you have a little bit of flexibility there still, you know, like did Michael Jordan, I mean, did you watch Last Dance, where he's talking about, man, like he walked into that room with all the guys that are doing coke, lines of coke, and, you know, whatever else, and they're just partying their ass off, and he's just like, nope, I'm not doing it. Like, how bad do you want it? You got to make sacrifices. And so I think that that's a personal decision. If it's definitely not going to move you forward. So if you're you know, using that as something to celebrate after a big win or whatever, like, as a coach, I'm like, hey, fine, cool, but guess what? You're going to grind Monday. So be ready.
Better get after it.
Yeah, you better get after that.
So it's funny you bring up Jordan, because he's, you know, walks into the room, there's a bunch of guys doing coke, whatever, the snow's flying, but he'll rip cigars for days. So that not like, I mean, you pick your poison, right, at that point?
Yeah, I mean, did he though, as he was playing, or was that after? So,
man, I feel like there was definitely clips of that, well, like during his prime, that he was smoking cigars on the golf course, you know.
Right.
Yeah, ripping it. I feel like there was a story. I gotta definitely look this up, but there was a story of him crushing like a significant amount of beers on the golf course, and then playing basketball that night and still dropping like 30.
Well, I mean, look at Rodman. I mean, he's going to the Vegas, and he's spending, you know, nights there with no sleep, just totally partying his ass off. And then he comes back, you know, to the playoffs, and he performs, and he's like a game day player. I don't know, man. You know, it's some freak athletes out there pull it off. But honestly, if you're going to ask me, like, would they have done better without it? 100%, you know, it's like, they could do well in spite of that, maybe being a deterrent towards their performance. But you know, like, if you're looking for justification for it, you're not gonna get it from me.
Yeah, fair enough. I just like shooting the shit, that I'll be honest at. But so, you know, sort of moving forward from that, you know, trying to figure out these biohacking things. This is such a huge thing in the industry now, on how to, you know, become the best person, athlete, individually you can be. Are there ways that you can fast track protein synthesis?
Fast tracking protein synthesis? Well, I mean, there's some ways, like restricting for a while. And we've talked about this in terms of like mini cuts, mini bulks, where basically there's also like just, you know, like eliminating protein for a day or two, a few days, just so like your body's more, you know, receptive towards it, and you know, can break it down and be a little more effective with shuttling the protein. So that could be a strategy that you could apply. I know, you know, with carb cycling, sort of a similar type of mentality where, you know, and I did carb cycling wrong, by the way, as an athlete. I just thought that meant that you eat a lot of spaghetti before your meet. And then that was gaining all the benefits from the carbs. But really it's restricting in so that way your body, as it recognizes it, and it sometimes it gets like that fatigue, and your body's less receptive towards it if you've been inundating your body with protein constantly. So it might just help to step away from it for a bit, reintroduce it, and see what that does for you.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's an interesting note. So to take that to the next level, intermittent fasting, then, is that something you recommend? Is that depending on what your goals are? How would you approach that?
Yeah, it's definitely something that depends on the individual. There's a couple benefits. The main benefits from it are just for overall longevity and for health in general, not for, I hate people that use it for, well, I don't hate people, but I don't like it when I see that people use it as a fat loss strategy, because now you're just getting into that sort of runway model kind of diet, where we're just not eating. And, you know, in terms of using it for health benefits. I think that there's a lot to be said about recognizing true hunger and what true hunger feels like versus, sorry, my phone keeps dying on me. True hunger. And then also all the social elements, food, you sort of get wrapped into. So emotional eating is another thing that people need to pay attention to. All those things that happen where like if you're feeling a certain way and you get an association, and so you don't realize what kind of foods that you are drawn to as a result of that. Or if you're tired and you end up eating a lot more processed foods because that's what sounds good. And you just kind of recognize all these things and how often you eat and why you eat, and just paying more attention to all the normal signs and signals that your body's providing you and your energy levels. I think that fasting is a great way to kind of pull you away from just the normal everyday routine, so you can kind of peer from the outside to see how that was all affecting you, and especially reintroducing it. There's other benefits to it. For me personally, it was finding out certain foods that just didn't agree with me that I was eating all the time, and just kind of removing those, because I was getting a lot of inflammation. I was getting a lot of acid reflux and different symptoms as a result that I just didn't associate with those specific foods. And so there's value in that as well. And
is
so
that
anyway,
like ice cream?
Ice cream?
Is that like I gotta touch on that, because that's something you guys bring up, the addiction that I don't want to addiction, I shouldn't say that, but you guys enjoy it frequently.
Yeah, that's Adam. Adam's the big ice creamaholic, but yeah, we always jab him for that. I'm the cheeseaholic, so try and rip a cheese block out of my hand. Good luck.
Wait, any specific cheese?
I love me some white extra sharp cheddar. That's like my jam. Or I forget the name of it, but it's an Irish white cheddar. Dublin or anyway, that's one of my favorites too. But yeah, I'm a big cheese fan.
Too bad you just missed out on a sponsor. Just missed out on a sponsorship opportunity there.
Oh yeah, I mean, if there's cheese people out there, they'll, I'm willing to be their representative, 100%.
You'll be just standing there, block of cheese. That'll be your pumpkin for your questions on IG. Hey, that'll be you just sitting there with a block of cheese. I love it. Well, Justin, I appreciate you so much for coming on the Athletes Podcast. I have one last question that we always ask the individuals that we have on the Athletes Podcast, and it is, what is the single piece of advice that you would give to the next generation of athletes coming up, going through this? Adam's answer was sleep, so you can't say that. What would be your recommendation? I know, I'm sorry, but how would you, what piece of advice would you give to that next generation of athletes to help them succeed?
Well, it all revolves around longevity. And really for me, it's constantly reassessing, your joints and the capabilities of your joints, how stable your joints are, the function of your joints, and doing all of the tedious prep before your workouts, doing all the tedious mobility drills and things that before a super strenuous game or event that you have coming up is gonna pay off tenfold. And if athletes could just really adopt and ritualize mobility practices and joint stability and mobility, I think that if they really understand like how beneficial that is, not only just for the immediate but the long term, it will catapult them to a level that they can't go doing it the way they're doing it right now. Damn.
Well, you sold me on it there. Now I've got to go do this. That's what I'm doing tonight for the next 2 hours. Just straight stretching, straight mobility work. I'm going to your webinar and I'm going to figure it out. Get stuff sorted. Justin Andrews, I really appreciate you coming on the Athletes Podcast. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Get that phone charged.
Yeah.
Keep eating cheese, and we'll talk to you soon, man.